Hello everyone, Rich from Mowd here again. Thanks for coming back, joining us again this week for week 4 of our 6-week lawn renovation. You might remember from the previous videos we had some workers come in and tore a 25-metre trench right through the middle of our garden, and we've been working on repairing that trench for the last 4 weeks. I think you'll agree the progress so far has been really good. The lawn's looking really good again, but there's a few things we've got to do this week. I've been promising you and myself and my wife that I'd seed the bare patches in the lawn this week. I've been meaning to do it for a few weeks. This week the weather's been terrible. It's done nothing but rain on and off, and that's just made it a bit difficult to get outside and do what I needed to do. Still managed to get a couple of cuts in though on the lawn. We got the Atco out, gave the lawn a chop, so I'll show you that very briefly. But yeah, this week we did actually get out to seed the lawn, so we'll have a look at how to seed, how to do patch repair. A bit different to overseeding an entire lawn, just some really easy quick shortcuts, the way to make it really easy for you. If you've got dogs at home that make those little patches where they're wee in your garden, this is a really easy way to repair those, and just any other little areas really that you need to just get a bit of seed and topsoil in. We're going to have a little bit of a look at composting. It doesn't quite sound like lawn care issues, but actually if you think about the amount of nutrients you're putting into the lawn through the fertilisers, the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium, calcium, iron, magnesium, all those micronutrients as well. Then when you cut the grass, you take the top third of the blade off, and then you're throwing away all that goodness. So actually recycling your grass, putting it in a compost bin, letting it break down is a really good way to keep hold of those nutrients and reuse them in your borders or in your vegetable gardens. So we'll have a quick look at composting and how we use that, not just with the grass, but balancing that out with some carbon, like cardboard boxes, twigs, things like that. We're going to have a walk around the lawn, have a look, see the development. I'll show you some older pictures and some newer pictures, and you can really see how it's coming on. Even the barer patches now have really filled in, and the lawn's responded really well to the humic acid and the kelp that we put down a few weeks ago. But mainly I think patience is what's helped this lawn. It's easy to put product down and think that overnight it's going to work, but actually a bit of patience. This week we've had loads of sun and it's been really warm, so the grass is going nuts at the moment. So it's important to keep the cutting going, and regular cutting as well encourages that grass to grow kind of sideways and spread back into those bare patches. So yeah, first things first, let's take a walk around the lawn and see where we're at. Right, so this week we can, well, to start with, look at the stripes. All the products that have been put down now providing a really nice vivid kind of stripe. We had plenty of rain this week as well, plenty of rain and plenty of warmth, so the grass is going nuts. I'll start over here. You can see this is where the new turf was laid. You really can't see now where it links in. What I can see here still is this kind of, there's a bit of a depression here, and that's what we're going to fill in today with the topsoil to level it out. And if I'm super close, you can just see a few of the bold patches, but nothing compared to what they were even 2 weeks ago actually, so they're looking great. But I will seed those bits, a couple of bits down here as well. But actually the lawn is looking pretty good. If we go and look at the seeded area, as I get closer you can start to see there's a few areas that are still a bit bare. I did just pop a little bit more seed down last week in some of the really bare areas, but actually I'm quite happy with this. Week 4, again you can see some of the other grass which has just germinated. I think the thing with this grass is you've got to be patient, you've got to wait, not try and rush it, but actually I think it's looking all right. One thing we do need to do this week is trim that willow down a little bit. It's casting too much shade, and there are a few areas like over here they're just going a little bit bare. Again, it's the bit I mentioned last week about not watering it enough. It's rained plenty this week, so I just think we need to be just conscious of how much these branches overhang here, but generally it's looking pretty good. So we've got a few bare patches that we said we were going to cover over the last few weeks, and you can see the grass has actually started to recover really well, but there are a few little bare areas. Now this one's an interesting one to start with. A few pieces of kit I'm going to use. I'm going to get this rake here, give it a good roughing up, pull out a bit of the thatch and dead grass. Then I've got my grass seed. Now this grass seed, choice of grass seed is important. This is a hardy grass seed because I've got kids running around the garden, but it still looks pretty good if you treat it well, but no point putting ornamental seed in this garden. But this is 50 grams of grass seed, and this is the amount you would use over a square metre if you were sowing new lawn. 35 grams for overseeding. So you can see how little that actually is. There's no point in putting too much grass seed down, because then all you find is the grass seed is it's all fighting for the same nutrition, for the same area, for the same water, for the same air. So don't be tempted to put loads of grass seed down. And then obviously you're going to need some topsoil. This one's a bit wet today, but it's not too much of a problem, and that's just the massive bag of grass seed I've got for all year round. Now one of the quick cheats I've got for you here is actually just grabbing the topsoil and mixing it in with the grass seed already. So that's all ready to go now. I can just walk around the garden and drop that in as and when I need to. Those of you who play golf might be familiar with these out of the divot bags or on the tees. It works really well. You can even do that kind of 2 or 3 days ahead actually, and kind of start the germination process. So that's how I like to do it. I can really run around the garden and get 10-15 patches done in less than 3-4 minutes really. So we're going to start with the rake. We're going to find the bare patch, just pull out any dead material, dead grass. You can see all that coming out of there. Don't worry about that, just drop that in the compost. And so now it's got it all roughed up, we can see the actual soil bed. I'm just going to grab my mixture, grab a good handful of that and really push it down. We'll sort the level in a second, but you want to really push that down into there. Tap it down. The important thing here is you get as much seed to soil contact as possible. The more seed to soil contact you get, the better it will be. And then just because of all the birds hanging around, I'm going to drop a little bit of topsoil on top. This really is just a bit of protection from the birds, and also helps keep the moisture in a little bit, which, as we all know, keeping grass seed damp is absolute key to having it germinate. So just a light little dusting on top there, and you can see that one patch repaired in a matter of seconds. Now I've got this loot, you might not have one of these, but again all I do with this is run it over, and that just ensures that we have a nice flat patch repair. Now that is done, that is ready to go. I'm going to water that in now and then just leave it. That's how quickly you can do a patch repair. And then just to show you how quickly we can actually get this garden done, there's a few areas I've been around that I've just pre-raked. There's one, here's another one here, 2, got these 2 little bits here, 3, 4. Oh, and this one here, lovely. This one's a bit deeper again. A couple of good handfuls of that. This is on the edge of the turf actually, so there's a bit of a lump there. Don't forget, this is the soil bed, so you'll get a bit of small thatch layer. Grass will grow as well, and that'll all level out. All I need to do now is dust that with a bit of topsoil and find out where I'm going to put the rest of my seed. So if you're familiar with golf courses, like I say, you'll be fairly familiar with this process. There's a reason that golf courses do it like this. It's really easy to do and it actually works. All you've got to do now is keep it wet. But again, really great for repairing dog patches as well. This is a bit that hasn't seeded terribly well from a few weeks ago, so I'm just going to drop a little bit more on there, let it do its thing. Now what you can see here, this is a bit of the old grass, the bit I've seeded that hasn't come through brilliantly, but I'm going to overseed it now, so it's not a problem. But what you'll notice is, because it was all dug up and we backfilled a lot of this hole with the overburden from the trench being dug, we've got a lot of weeds coming up. So what we don't want to do is use any weed killer on these, because it's all young grass. It'll just Best case scenario, it'll inhibit the growth. Worst case scenario, it'll just kill all the young seedlings off. So do take the time, because once you've put the seeds in, you won't be able to treat it for, or give it 3 months ideally. And the last thing you want in the middle of a lovely new seed bed is loads of weeds. So just take your time with a trowel. Doesn't matter how much of the ground you disturb, because you're going to seed it anyway, but just make sure you're getting them all out. Look at that one there, look, hiding there. Try and get as much of the root as possible. Yep, another one there. There we go. And yeah, treating the seeds. I mean, it's always best to cut them out anyway, no matter where you are on the lawn, but actually it's really important when you're going to do some seeding. So again, in here, just going to run. Don't worry about that grass I've just covered over. Next couple of days with a bit of water, and as the grass it will stand up and grow back through the soil. So even tomorrow, this won't look quite as kind of raw as this, if you like, but I'll just drop some topsoil on top of that, press it in nice and firm, then we can come back next week and see how that's germinated. So what we have here is a slightly different matter. This is a little bit deeper, this one. Just going to dig out, got a little stone in there, look, worth getting that out, probably from the building works that we had done. Dug all this area up, but this is a little bit deeper, so just going to drop a bit of topsoil in there first. Don't want the grass seed to go in kind of too deep, so just want to build it up with a bit of topsoil first. There we go. And then no different, just going to grab my seed mix, drop in a good handful, spread it over the top, and then a nice little pat down. That's pretty level, and you can see how well that grass seed is already kind of embedded. Loads of contact between the seed and the soil, and then just a little dusting over the top, just so the birds can't see it. Pat it down again, just a little bit more over there. There we go, and that should keep them away, keep it moist. And then the final thing again, just because I can, is just to run the lute over it. There we go. So then another patch repair done in a matter of 1 minute. Well, there's the end of the week. Quite an easy week this week. Lots of rain, lots of warmth. The grass is growing really well. It showed you a really quick and easy way to seed any bare patches that you have in your lawns. I've done probably 15 patches today. It took me, once I'd got the mix set up, no more than 3 or 4 minutes. So there really is no excuse. Just remember to keep those new seeded areas damp, keep them wet. Even if you're having rain, they can dry out during the day, so just make sure that you keep them nice and damp. Don't wash the soil away, just keep them nice and damp, and you should have no issues whatsoever. Bit of an issue with the Atco today. It might be done now. We'll have to wait till next week, see if I actually managed to get it repaired or not, but I really nursed it through the back lawn. I think it's looking great, but I've really had to nurse it through, so I'm not holding out much hope that it might be the Cobra next week. One thing on the grass seed that I need to mention is picking the right grass seed. If you've got kids running around and you want a garden that's hardy to play and pets running around it, then get a hardy grass seed. I'm not going to go into the grass types in this video, it's another video really, but when you're buying it, look on the box and see what it's actually been advertised to do, because if you fit something like ornamental grass seed in the back garden and you've got dogs and pets running around, you're going to spend an awful lot of time and money on products, supplying products to keep that grass looking its absolute best. Generally they need more water, they're a lot finer, so they need regular overseeding. Whereas if you just want a nice lawn like my back garden that the kids can play in, then use a hard wearing grass. If you've got areas of shade, then use a shade tolerant grass. That's really important. My front lawn has a different grass because I don't have any kids running around the front lawn, and it's much smaller, it's easier to manage, so I have a much finer grass, an ornamental grass seed. So just be careful which one you're going to pick, otherwise you could be chasing your tail trying to make it look nice. And if you're not sure what grass seed you got now, that's fine. Every time you overseed it in the spring or the autumn, just introduce the new grass seed and stick with that grass seed, and in a few years it will be the native seed in that lawn. Next week then, we'll do another lawn walk. It'll be week 5, so hopefully the lawn will be pretty much done by then. We'll wrap up the week after with an overview of the start to finish. And we'll also have a quick look at 2 different types of spreaders that I use for spreading granular fertiliser. I've got a small handheld spinner. I've also got a bucket spreader for spreading much wider and higher volumes of kit. So we'll have, of seed. So we'll have a look next week at those 2 different types of spreaders. And I really need to trim that willow tree. You can see the areas now. You can just not see it quite on the camera, but it's causing a lot of shade underneath my willow tree. Water's not getting to it, the sun's not getting to it, and the grass is just starting to thin out. If I act now, if I get it trimmed and let the nutrients and the light get in there, we should be absolutely fine, but I don't want to leave it any longer. So again, hopefully you've enjoyed this week's video, learnt a little bit maybe. If you've got any other tips and tricks on how I can manage my willow tree or improve my vegetables, you might have seen those in the background. Leave the comments below, always happy to listen to some advice. But in terms of the lawn, hopefully you can see just applying these simple methods can get your lawn from looking like a building site back to something that actually you're quite proud to show your neighbours and actually host a party on. So join us next week for week 5, but don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to see last week's video, you can click up there. And if you want to see this whole playlist with all 6 videos in, you can click down here. Thanks very much everyone, hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye.